Have you ever had one of those days on the water? You know the one. For a solid hour, you are a fishing god. Every cast is perfect. The bites are aggressive, and you can't seem to do anything wrong. You're a hero. Then, like someone flipped a switch, it's over. The water goes silent. The bites stop. You go from hero to absolute zero, and you spend the next 3 hours wondering what you did wrong. Well, what if I told you it wasn't your fault? What if the reason for that sudden shutdown was completely invisible? Today we're talking about the silent killer of a hot bite, that tiny, subtle change in barometric pressure. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll look at your weather app in a completely new way. So let me ask you, do you really think a little air pressure can make that big of a difference? Let's find out. For generations, we've heard the old wisdom from our granddads and the guys at the tackle shop. Fish bite best before a storm. And you know what? They weren't wrong, but they were only telling you part of the story. That simple phrase has led a lot of us to just look for a cloudy day and hope for the best. We've been conditioned to think in terms of good weather and bad weather. We see a high-pressure bluebird sky day, and we might as well just stay home, right? That's the common belief. But the truth is far more specific. It's not about the storm itself or the sunny day itself. It's about the subtle transition between those states. The reason so many of us get stuck in a rut is we're looking at a snapshot, a single moment in time, when we should be looking at the trend. We're about to unravel why that old wisdom is outdated and how a deeper understanding of pressure changes can turn a frustrating day into a predictable success. First, let's get on the same page. What even is barometric pressure? Forget the complex science for a second. Picture it like this. It's the weight of the air pushing down on everything, including the surface of the lake you're fishing. When the weather is stable and sunny, you typically have high pressure, meaning there's more weight pushing down. When a storm system is approaching, the air gets lighter and you have low pressure or less weight pushing down. Imagine you're standing on the shore. You don't really feel this change, maybe a shift in the wind or some clouds rolling in. But to a fish, this change in weight on the water is a massive deal. It directly affects their body and, more importantly, their comfort. It's the one environmental factor they literally cannot escape, and it dictates their mood, their location, and their willingness to eat your lure. Thinking of it as just air weight is the simplest way to start connecting the dots between the weather forecast and the fish's behavior. So why do fish care so much about this invisible weight? It all comes down to a tiny, crucial organ called the swim bladder. You can think of it as a little balloon inside the fish that helps it control its buoyancy, allowing it to suspend at different depths without sinking or floating to the top. This little balloon is filled with gas, and like any balloon, it's sensitive to external pressure. When the barometric pressure is high, it's squeezing that swim bladder, making it smaller. When the pressure drops, that swim bladder expands. This constant expansion and contraction can be uncomfortable for the fish. Imagine feeling bloated or cramped just because the weather is changing. That's essentially what a fish goes through. This single biological fact is the key to everything. Once you understand that the fish's entire sense of well-being is tied to the comfort of its swim bladder, you can start to predict how it will react to even the slightest atmospheric shift. Now we get to the magic moment. Why is a falling pressure the dinner bell we all hear about? Picture that swim bladder again. As the weight of the air lessens during a pressure drop, the gas in the swim bladder expands. This relieves the squeezing sensation the fish was feeling during the high-pressure period. It's like taking off a tight pair of shoes after a long day. The fish suddenly feels comfortable, relaxed, and active. This newfound comfort, combined with an instinct that tells them a weather change is coming, triggers a strong urge to feed. They know conditions might get tough later, so they go on the prowl, actively hunting and feeding while they feel good. This is that hero hour. You're out there, the sky is getting a little dark, the wind picks up, and bam, the bite is on fire. It's not a coincidence. You've hit the biological sweet spot where the fish feel their absolute best. Let's paint a picture of that perfect hero hour. You launch the boat under a calm, slightly hazy sky. For the first 30 minutes, nothing. Then you notice the wind is starting to come up from the southwest. The clouds on the horizon are thickening and moving in a little faster. You check your phone's barometer app and see it's dropped by 0.2 of an inch in the last hour. You pick up a crankbait and on the first cast, a 4-pound bass absolutely demolishes it. For the next 60 minutes it is pure chaos. Every point, every submerged log, every weed edge is holding an aggressive, feeding fish. You can't do anything wrong. This is the moment we all chase. It's the falling barometer in action. The fish are comfortable, their instincts are screaming, "Eat now!" And you are perfectly positioned to take advantage of it. You feel like a fishing genius, like you have the entire lake figured out. And in that moment, you do. You've perfectly aligned your timing with the fish's peak comfort and feeding window. And then it happens. The 0 hour begins. The wind that was blowing steadily now seems to be gusting and swirling, or maybe it dies down completely. The rain might start, or maybe the front just passes through. The key is that downward trend in pressure has stopped. It has bottomed out and stabilized. For the fish, that feeling of relief is over. Their swim bladders have adjusted to the new, lower pressure, and the urgency to feed is gone. They've filled their bellies, and now their bodies are entering a neutral or even slightly uncomfortable state as the pressure holds steady. This is when you go from a fish every few casts to nothing for an hour. It's not that the fish left, it's that their mood has completely changed. The dinner bell has stopped ringing, that magical window has closed, and you are left casting at fish that are no longer interested in eating. This is the most frustrating moment in fishing, the exact point where a hero becomes a zero. Now let's talk about the opposite scenario, the one that many anglers dread, a rapidly rising pressure. This typically happens after a storm front has passed. The clouds clear out, the sun comes out, and you're left with one of those beautiful, crisp, bluebird sky days. It looks gorgeous to us, but for a fish it's torture. As the air pressure increases, that weight is once again pushing down on the water, squeezing their swim bladder. This is an extremely uncomfortable feeling for them. It's like they're constantly being squeezed from the inside. When fish are uncomfortable, they do what any of us would do. They seek relief and stop thinking about food. Their primary focus shifts from hunting to simply enduring the discomfort. They aren't in the mood to chase down a spinnerbait or a topwater plug. They are hunkered down, miserable, and waiting for the pressure to stabilize so they can feel normal again. This is why those beautiful post-frontal days are notoriously tough for fishing. So how do fish physically react when the barometer is shooting up? Their behavior becomes predictable if you know what to look for. That discomfort from their squeezed swim bladder drives them to seek out a place where the pressure is more stable. For many fish, especially in deeper lakes, this means going deep. The deeper they go, the more the water pressure around them equalizes the change from the air pressure above, giving them some relief. They will also tuck themselves into the thickest, nastiest cover they can find. They'll bury themselves in deep weed beds, get tight to the pilings of a dock, or wedge themselves under a sunken tree. They are not in an aggressive, roaming posture. They are in a defensive, hunkered-down posture. They want security and stability. If you're out there on a high-pressure day, throwing fast-moving baits across open flats, you're fishing for fish that simply aren't there. They've moved and changed their attitude completely. This brings us to a huge myth we need to bust right now. The old saying, high pressure means bad fishing, is just too simple, and often it's flat out wrong. The real enemy of a good bite isn't high pressure or low pressure, it's changing pressure. A period of stable high pressure, for instance, can lead to fantastic fishing. Imagine you've had 3 or 4 straight days of sunny, calm weather. The barometer has been high, but it hasn't moved much. The fish have had time to completely acclimate. Their swim bladders have adjusted, the discomfort is gone, and they've established predictable daily patterns. They know where the bait is, and they will set up to feed. The bite might be more subtle, often concentrated in early morning and late evening, but it can be incredibly consistent. So don't write off a day just because the barometer reads 30.3 inches. If it's been there for a while, the fish are comfortable, and you can definitely catch them. This is the single most important takeaway. The rate of change is what truly matters, not the specific number on the barometer. A slow, gradual drop in pressure over 24 hours will create a long, steady feeding window. Fish will be active and feeding consistently throughout that period. On the other hand, a sudden, sharp drop in pressure ahead of a violent thunderstorm will create a short, intense, and often chaotic feeding frenzy. It's that hero hour we talked about, but compressed into an even smaller window. The same goes for rising pressure. A slow rise gives fish time to adjust and move, while a rapid spike after a front will shut them down almost instantly. You need to stop thinking of the barometer as a single number and start thinking of it as a graph with a line. Is that line trending down, up, or is it flat? The direction and the steepness of that line will tell you more about the fishing than anything else. You don't need a fancy barometer on your boat to spot these changes. One of the best tools you have is your own two eyes. Start paying attention to the clouds. Are they high, thin, and wispy, like cirrus clouds? That often indicates stable, high pressure. Are you starting to see lower, thicker, puffier clouds like cumulus clouds begin to build and stack up? That's a sign of instability and a potential pressure drop. And if you see those dark, towering, anvil-shaped cumulonimbus clouds on the horizon, you know a significant pressure drop is imminent. Learning to read the sky is an old-school skill, but it's incredibly effective. The clouds are a direct visual indicator of what's happening in the atmosphere. They are the billboard that tells you whether the fish are likely to be biting or hunkering down. It's a skill that takes time to develop, but it will make you a much more intuitive and successful angler. Another powerful visual cue is the wind. The wind doesn't just happen. It's caused by the movement of air from high-pressure areas to low-pressure areas. Pay close attention to its direction and intensity. A calm, still morning often means stable pressure. If a breeze starts to pick up, especially if it's a warm, southerly wind in many parts of the country, it's often a sign that a low-pressure system is approaching. The wind is literally pulling that new weather system toward you. Conversely, after a front passes, the wind will often shift direction, coming from the north or west, and it might feel cooler and drier. This shift is a classic sign that the pressure is now rising. So when you're on the boat and you feel that first hint of a new wind direction on your face, understand that it's more than just a breeze. It's a signal that the conditions under the water are about to change dramatically for the fish. Here's a practical tip you can use right now. You are likely holding a very sophisticated barometer in your hand. Most modern smartphones have a built-in barometric pressure sensor. Go to your app store and download a barometer app. Many of them are free. This is a game changer. You don't have to guess based on the clouds or the wind anymore. You can get a precise, real-time reading of the atmospheric pressure. Before you even leave the house, you can look at the pressure trend for the last few hours. Is it falling? Is it rising? Is it stable? When you get to the lake, you can monitor it throughout the day. If you're in the middle of that hero bite and you see on your phone that the pressure has just bottomed out and started to tick back up, you know your window is closing fast. It's a powerful tool that takes the guesswork out of the equation. Let's walk through a classic case study. It's a summer morning and you get to the lake at dawn. There's a light fog on the water. It's calm and the pressure is low and stable after a storm passed through 2 days ago. You start throwing a topwater frog and the bass are absolutely choking it. For 2 hours, you have an incredible bite. But as the sun gets higher, it burns off that last bit of haze. The sky turns a brilliant cloudless blue. You notice a light, cool breeze picks up from the north. You check your phone, and sure enough, the barometer has started a steady climb. Your topwater bite completely evaporates. The fish didn't just decide they were full. The rising pressure started squeezing their swim bladders, making them uncomfortable. They abandoned those shallow feeding flats and either suspended or tucked into the nearest thick cover. The hero bite was a direct result of stable low pressure, and the zero that followed was a direct result of the pressure starting to rise. So, how do you adapt your tactics? Let's say you've checked the forecast and you see the pressure is predicted to fall throughout the day. This is your green light to get aggressive. The fish are going to be comfortable and actively looking for a meal. This is the time to cover a lot of water with fast-moving baits. Think spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, lipless crankbaits, and topwater lures. The fish are more likely to chase a lure down, so you don't have to be subtle. Fan cast large areas and focus on classic feeding spots like points, weed lines, and creek channels. Your goal is to intercept fish that are on the move. Don't be afraid to use bigger profiles and brighter colors. This is an offensive game. You're capitalizing on the fish's active mood, so your fishing style should match their energy. Go fast, go aggressive, and expect to get bit. Now for the flip side, you get to the lake, and it's a beautiful, sunny, post-frontal day. The barometer is high and still rising. You know the fish are going to be uncomfortable and lethargic. This is the time to completely shift your mindset. Put away the fast-moving baits. Your new mantra is slow and subtle. This is the time for finesse tactics. Think about drop-shot rigs with small plastic worms, shaky heads, or Neko rigs. Jigs are also a fantastic choice because you can work them incredibly slowly through that thick cover where the fish are hiding. Your goal is no longer to make the fish chase, but to drop a tempting, easy meal directly on their nose. You have to force-feed them. This requires patience. You need to make repeated, precise casts to high-percentage targets like deep brush piles, dock pilings, and shady overhangs. The bite will likely be just a faint tick on your line. It's a defensive game, and the angler with the most patience wins. A common question is, does this affect all fish species the same way? The short answer is no, but the general principles hold true for most. Bass, particularly largemouth, are very sensitive to pressure changes due to their relatively large swim bladders. They react very predictably. Walleye are also known to feed heavily during a pressure drop, often moving up onto shallow structures to hunt. Panfish, like crappie and bluegill, will also get very active, which is why you can sometimes load the boat with them right before a storm. However, fish that live in very deep water might be less affected because the immense water pressure around them helps to buffer the changes in air pressure. Similarly, fish in rivers with strong currents are often more influenced by flow and water temperature than by the barometer. But for the vast majority of lake and pond anglers, this pressure-comfort connection is a dominant factor for most species you'll target. The depth where the fish are holding also plays a huge role in how much the barometer affects them. A bass sitting in 3 feet of water is going to feel the full force of an atmospheric pressure change. There isn't much water overhead to dampen the effect. This is why the shallow bite can be so incredible during a pressure drop and so utterly dead during a pressure spike. However, a fish holding in 30 feet of water is under a lot more constant pressure from the water itself. A change in air pressure is a much smaller percentage of the total pressure they're feeling. They will still be affected, but it's not as dramatic. This is why one of the key adjustments on a tough, high-pressure day is to simply fish deeper. You're targeting fish that are in a more stable environment and are therefore more likely to be in a neutral or feeding mood compared to their shallow water cousins who are feeling the full squeeze. Now we have to be realistic. The barometer isn't the only thing that matters. Sometimes we can get a false positive, where we blame the pressure for a slow day when it was really something else. Was the bite slow because the pressure was rising, or was it because the sun came out, eliminating the shadows the fish were using as ambush points? Did the bite die because the barometer stabilized, or because another angler in a loud boat just roared over your spot? It's important to see barometric pressure as one major piece of a larger puzzle. You still have to consider water temperature, water clarity, time of day, and forage availability. But on a day when all other factors seem to be stable, if you experience that classic hero to zero moment, the barometer is almost always the prime suspect. It's the most powerful on-off switch in the fishing world. Let's turn all this information into a simple pre-trip checklist. Before you even hook up the boat, do these 3 things. 1. Open your weather app and look at the hourly forecast. Don't just look for the rain icon, look for the barometric pressure reading. Is it predicted to fall, rise, or stay flat during the hours you plan to fish? 2. Look at the wind forecast. Note the speed and, more importantly, the direction. Are there any major wind shifts predicted during your trip? 3. Put these two pieces of information together to form a game plan. If you see a steady pressure drop and a southerly wind, pack your reaction baits and plan to cover water. If you see a rising barometer and a north wind after a front, pack your finesse gear and identify some deep structure or thick cover on your map. Going to the lake with a plan based on the pressure trend will immediately put you ahead of 90% of the other anglers on the water. Finally, let's talk about that 1 hour rule. That transition from hero to zero often feels like it happens in about an hour. Whether it's the hour leading up to the pressure bottoming out or the hour right after a front passes and the pressure starts to spike, that 60-minute window is the most critical period of change. Your job as a thinking angler is to recognize when you're in that window. If the bite is on fire, enjoy it, but be mentally prepared for it to end. Start paying attention to the subtle cues. Is the wind changing? Are the clouds breaking up? When the bite does die, don't waste the next 3 hours stubbornly throwing the same lure that worked an hour ago. Acknowledge that the switch has been flipped, the game has changed. Immediately slow down, change your location, or switch to a more subtle presentation. Recognizing and reacting to that 1 hour transition is the true mark of an expert angler. It's how you stop having hero to zero days and start having consistently productive ones. So let's bring it all home. We've talked about swim bladders, pressure changes and weather patterns, but what's the one thing you absolutely need to remember? It's that the fish are not biting or refusing to bite because of a single number. They are reacting to the trend. It's the change, the movement that dictates everything. That hero to zero feeling isn't just bad luck. It's a predictable biological reaction to a changing environment. And the most shocking part is how small a change is required. A drop of just a few tenths of an inch on the barometer is enough to trigger a feeding frenzy and then shut it down completely. This knowledge is your new secret weapon. It allows you to look at a weather forecast and not just see if you need a rain jacket, but to actually predict how the fish will behave. It's the key to turning those frustrating, head-scratching days into calculated, successful outings. Thank you so much for watching and for sticking with us through this deep dive. If this changed the way you think about fishing, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that breaks it all down. Now, I have to ask you, what's the most dramatic hero to zero story you have from a day on the water? Drop it in the comments below. I can't wait to read them.